A child shouldn't be 6 going on 16. They should be, 8 going on 9, 9 going on 10. They need to experience their childhood and not have to worry about the grown-up things. That's should be left for the grown-ups. My parents got divorced the summer I was in the 3rd grade. Yeah, I remember it very clearly. I was in summer camp, and I can picture the baseball field and my parents and grandmother coming to visit. And I was standing with my grandmother, and I can see my parents talking to my brother, who then was reacting to the news that they shared to him. And I remember just kind of seeing that and being very confused. And then I don't have any memory after that. I found that I had a repressed memory. And only after therapy, after my own therapy, was I able to access that memory. And it was pretty powerful, where I remembered my parents telling me that they were getting divorced. And yeah, it was quite, I took it was difficult. It definitely was a hard time. During the time that things were complicated, I remember that also being very stressful for being kind of in the middle. At times, I found myself, and not purposefully done by my parents, but naturally because it was unguided, I found myself being a pawn in and communicating and relaying messages over, which were, even when they were innocent messages, people carrying their own baggage may take it one way when it's meant another way, and a child is not the appropriate messenger in a situation like this. Growing up, a very common thing that adults would tell me is how mature and responsible and how insightful I am. And at the time, I take it as a compliment, but there's the other side of that is really not a compliment at all, because as a child, you should be a child. You shouldn't be responsible or somebody that you can talk to. A child should play and run around and make mistakes and grow up at every stage appropriately. Let your children be children. Don't let them grow up too quickly, because it's not their time. And there's a lot of their childhood is gonna maybe come out later when they should really be adults. So it's not so much a compliment, because a child should be a child. For myself, looking back, yeah, I was taking it as a compliment and felt good to be able to be considered responsible and taking the whole situation well. But looking back, I really think that I should have been a kid. I should have been treated like a kid. I should have been allowed to be a kid. So as things got more and more complicated, it got to a point where luckily there was involvement from the school that I went to, where they noticed that things were headed in a bad direction, and they kind of intervened, and it was a reality check for everyone that things need to be worked out. And thankfully it did, because who knows where it would have ended up. And at this point, things are good. The expression "it takes a village" I think really applies here, because you never know who in the village is going to notice something, whether it be the school or, the shul, somebody in the community, a neighbor. Like really anybody can notice and be the messenger. Recently, I was at a bar mitzvah where the parents had gone through a divorce and then they had remarried. And when the bar mitzvah boy was giving his thank you speech, rather than calling out, I want to thank my mother and my father and my stepmother and my stepfather, he had said, I want to thank everyone who had a part in raising me. And I felt that was really beautiful. And it resonated well with me because it was so true, because every part of a child's upbringing is affected by the relationships that the parents have. And when it's positive, it's great. Both my grandmothers, both my father's mother and my mother's mother, really took the route of support rather than involvement. Like, they were just there for me rather than being involved. My grandmother had a big part in raising me all throughout my upbringing, while my parents were together, after the divorce. My grandmother was always there for me. She actually recently passed away, and I miss her every day. What I'm remembering is during the entire time, I was always able to go to my grandmother's house, and she was always there for me. And what I would say is, if you're in that situation, just know that maybe there's somebody you can always turn to. It can be a relative, a grandparent, a aunt or uncle, a cousin, somebody that you can turn to when times are tough. I felt for a long time that I can do this all on my own. I can process it on my own. I can deal with it. And as I got older and I had more training in psychotherapy, I was able to realize that there was a lot to be worked out in therapy. And so my message would be, you're not alone. You can talk to, a therapist, find a therapist that can help you with all this, because you don't have to process it all on your own.